I think it's actually very cool, this Shenzhen stuff. I will try to share my enthusiasm for Shenzhen, and hopefully I can translate or communicate this to you. Yeah? So with the winds, huh? So I called the first module Wind Whispers. And then I was thinking, okay, but what kind of images to put about this? And since we are in this idea of an observatory, yeah, so it's a kind of, I don't know how to think of this, yeah. So then when we went to this tower, there was this very funny kind of thing that you can do. This lady is kind of flying above the city, so it's a little bit ridiculous, a little bit, there is a kind of a strange attitude of what this wind might be about, yeah. So I like this because I don't understand what's exactly the game with this lady. Another kind of wind, which we like a lot, is this wind that comes from this guy. This is the god of winds. This is a kind of, I don't know, a European understanding of a god of wind. And it's blowing into the sea, and out of this sea comes a kind of a foam, a kind of a noise, and out of the noise there comes an Aphrodite. So I think these two winds are in a way communicating about something. Yeah? And then I was thinking, okay, now we need two kind of poems about what this might be about. Yeah? When we went to Shenzhen, we were in Nanjing, and then we went to Harbin, and from Harbin we were flying Adil, Augustino, and me towards Shenzhen. And I just downloaded the whole Wikipedia of Shenzhen, and while flying towards Shenzhen, I was reading the Wikipedia of this city. So this is insane. Yeah? This is unbelievable. Now let's just look at the sentences. I kind of took out sentences from this Wikipedia. So these are kind of only Wikipedia stuff, yeah, here. Once you read this, I got so excited on the flight towards Shenzhen. I was like, wow, this is so cool, huh? Shenzhen turned into a city in 1979. Yeah? I was born in 1983. So kind of we are roughly the same age, which is funny statement, yeah? Like Shenzhen and me, we are roughly the same age, huh? As of 2020, Shenzhen is ranked as an alpha city, whatever this means, yeah, somehow. But I think once we get towards the end of this Wikipedia, you will get the idea of what does it mean to be an alpha city. Shenzhen has the fifth highest number of billionaires of any city in the world. Yeah? So it's 40 years old, and the fifth biggest number of millionaires in the world. Now let's go back. 1980, Shenzhen had a population of 30,000 people. 30,000 people, that's like a small village, nobody. 1980s. 2020, it's Alpha City. Now Shenzhen has a population of roughly 30 million people. Yeah? So imagine this, in 40 years, 30 million people. So the official number on Wikipedia is 23 million people in 2020. Yeah? And then I was checking around, now it's roughly 30 million. From 2019 to 2020, that's 1 year, Shenzhen population grew for 4 million people. Switzerland has 8 million people. Yeah? Shenzhen grew in 1 year for 4 million people. Imagine if Zurich had to accept 4 million people in 1 year. This would be there would be a civil war in Switzerland. Yeah? Crazy. I mean, you see these sentences, how powerful they are. So I think if anyone wants to think about what cities are today, it's not in Europe for sure. Yeah? It's somewhere else. And I think this is, how do you accept this amount of people? Look at this now, the next sentence, even more crazy. Shenzhen is a part of Pearl River Delta Metropolitan region, the world's largest urban area, which has a population of 100 million people. So the population The area is 50,000 square kilometers. Switzerland has an area of 40,000 square kilometers. So imagine Switzerland with, let's say then a little bit less, 80 million people living here. So it's 10 times more. Now it's 8 million, it's 80 million people. Yeah? It's crazy. So this is Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Macau, Hong Kong. All of this together creates 100 million people. Look at now the next sentence. And I'm flying towards Shenzhen and reading this, and I'm like, whoa. So it's you don't read this about too many cities. Yeah? There were more skyscrapers completed in Shenzhen in 2016 than in the whole US and Australia combined. One city built more skyscrapers than two countries, and not random countries like US and Australia or Canada together. As of 2023, 70% of cars in Shenzhen are electric, which means basically all the cars are electric. The ones who are on gasoline, these are the trucks and buses. And now imagine if the city is, okay, let's go to the next sentence. It's even more crazy. Huh? Shenzhen is a young city. So it's, you know, like if you go to Tokyo, Tokyo is like an old lady. It's very well dressed. Everything is proper, makeup, you know, and she's walking slowly and everything. She knows what she wants. And then you go to the Shenzhen, and this is a kind of an 18-year-old young girl just running and crazy. Huh? People who are older than 60 years old, so only 5% of people in Shenzhen are older than 60-year-old. And another crazy sentence. And this is so funny when you are there and then you see, I don't know, this kind of tractor or this kind of huge construction vehicles, and the people who drive them is you. Yeah, it's not this kind of, you know, when you look at here, it's always some kind of a little bit fat old guy who's running boom, 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 and there it's kind of kids driving this kind of things. So imagine what is this about? Huh? What's going on there? And then when you look how these things look like when we were there, it looks kind of nice. Yeah, all of this is extremely impressive. These things are well done. It's kind of clean. It's safe. People are not depressed. People are working. Everyone is young. There is maybe I'm a little bit biased. Yeah, I kind of like it a lot. So you have to take it with a little bit of distance. But I was very impressed because you rarely go to a city that has this impressive Wikipedia page. I'm kind of joking. Of course, if you go to Paris, it's impressive as well, but it's impressive in a Tokyo sense. You know, I have a history. I've seen it all. I know it all. I was very powerful. Now I'm a little bit old. And this is the other way around. You know, I haven't seen anything. I'm crazy and I'm going to see it all. So there is a kind of an interesting future which is happening there. Yeah? Then I was thinking, okay, now just to kind of balance it with a little bit of a kind of poetics. So on one side, we have a kind of statistics on these things, and now let's say a kind of a European poetics on winds. The wandering soul comes from where the winds come from. He lives in the wind and sky. The soul is a life-sized wind instrument. The wind picks up, as they say, no one resists the wind, so no world without wind. So if this is saying something about China in a non-explicit way, huh? This is saying something about a kind of Europe in a poetic way. I would say the same goes with these images here. But what we want to do is a way how to communicate between these things. So it's a kind of an observatory, but this is not an observatory in, I would argue, not in a sense of, you know, when you observe in a passive way. So a kind of a 20th century or 19th century understanding of observation. You sit outside and then there's something that you observe, you do analytics on top of it, and then you make a kind of a conclusion, but more like a kind of a quantum observatory where you are always already part of the experiment. You are inside. So it's not an observation in a sense of being detached, but it's a kind of observing, participating, and being a part of this thing that you are doing. And I think this is what big data, information technologies, electricity, connectivity, these things here are kind of about. Yeah. So I would say we are doing a kind of a quantum observatory where kind of Europe is getting interested in what China is, and China is looking how Europe will be there, how to host, how to play. It's about communication on one side. It's about winds. It's about the soul. The wind is a part of a climate, and in this climate there are many souls, but it's also about a kind of a politics that's happening there. It's about a kind of a diplomacy, how to talk, how to have affairs. And when you have affairs, it's sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not nice. You fall in love, then you fight, then you get married, then you cheat a little bit, then you get divorced. So this is all part of these affairs. And as you can see, the political situation today, it's all about this. You're kind of playing things. So how do we do this without getting into a fight with the kind of politics and diplomacy in between? How do we create an atmosphere which can foster all of these things, in which we can talk, in which we do a kind of contracts? Of course, we always have to think about the other side. So what are the taboos? What are the things that we cannot talk about? What do we have to exclude? And what do we have to make exclusive? So all of these kind of questions. How do we make friendships? How do we create certain weathers in which, again, are all of these elements inside? How do we translate from one culture to another culture, but translate again, not in a way to be faithful, but in a kind of a quantum translation. Translation is always with you. So if you are translating a certain book, why is this not just going? Okay, I will talk about this as well. Yeah, how do we translate between things? So I think this is what somehow we should be dealing with. Yeah. So how does China host the European Observatory? What the European Observatory wants to talk about? How do we feel these things? Kind of in a way, be polite, but also have an attitude, but not have fixed position, not moralize, but play around. In order to try to yeah, I mean, like, just one small digression. Look how this looks like. Now we went after this we went to LA. I just a kind of this is what I was kind of with LA. What I could not believe is LA has 18 million people, and they all live in family houses with gardens. Yeah, so imagine a village. So it's a village setup. 18 million people. Each one has a house which has a garden on one side, and then on the other side you have this. One is completely vertical, and it's a very different vibe that you feel. So here you feel this kind of big cars and gasoline, and boom, everyone is driving. And here it's like these kind of electric things which are just flying around. Yeah. So what we want to, in a way, push you towards is a kind of, so instead of making these arguments of what arguments in a sense of logical consequence of things in a line, what we propose to you is to kind of create mechanics of things. I think this is how Ludger was presenting yesterday. This is what I'm trying to do with this kind of the picture here, picture there, here, there, and then always kind of mirroring things and thinking how to put them in balance. So thinking of writing a project like an equation on which you are always developing. You have x here, and then you have something here, and then you multiply everything by 2, and then you divide, and then you cross something on the left, and then you move it on the right, and you're constantly shifting these things to create a kind of an environment, a kind of a cosmos around your project. So the whole idea of what we are trying to do is to develop a universe, a cosmos, a set of relations and connections around your projects. So I would argue that, so I don't have a clue what is good architecture. Huh? So I think whoever knows that what is good architecture, they are lying, yeah? Like, or they're a little bit fundamentalist. How do you, I mean, when you look these things, you have no clue what's good, what's not good. So instead of our way or how I think about it, it's you look at the person who is presenting or what they are trying to do, and you look at the consistency of things they surround themselves with, the richness, and how many connections does it have. I would argue that an object is as good as many relations as it has. So for instance, I really like the Freitag stuff, yeah? But I don't like it because it's well designed. I think in sense of designs, it's a little bit shit, yeah? But when you look at the cosmos they've built, so with the highway, and then with the truck, and with the immigrants, and then with all of these things building up, you say, okay, it's a nice cosmos. Then you can say, ethically, I don't agree. I think it's too urban. I like more cities, or I'm more punk or ecological or whatever. But when you look at the cosmos, you say, okay, this is an interesting cosmos that these guys developed. So try to think of mechanics, how you want to work with things. And then the idea is that today, since everything is connected, so we have a lot of things. We have all the books, in principle. Now with ChatGPT almost explicitly. We have all the movies. We have all the pictures. We have all the models. We have all of this connected, and it's here. You just kind of type, and these things are coming. Does this make things slightly different? How can we think about architecture and about our world in a different way? And I think this is what's happening today. We have this abundance and connectivity of information on one hand, so everything is accessible. But then on the other hand, the problem is that these things lose their hierarchies, they lose their meanings, and we have no clue what they are about. So if you are following what's happening today with the politics, I think this is explicitly so. You are looking at it and you're like, all of them, they are crazy. You don't know anymore if this is real. Are they joking? It's a theater, or it's fake, or it's made by Midjourney, or like what's going on? In this kind of setup, for us, it's very important that you don't moralize. Don't tell us that something is correct. This kind of comparing apples. My apple is better than your apple. No, don't do this. Don't tell us what is the truth, and do not analyze in a way, because by analyzing these things, you always find a conclusion, you always find a kind of a solution, and these kind of things are always aggressive, or they're kind of always patronizing, and don't be good, like in a sense of helping others. The problem with helping others is always that you put yourself above, and then you are patronizing. Just accept people and treat them with a kind of respect. Or for instance, this idea of fake news. So my question, I was 1 year at an exhibition in Madrid, which was called Fake News. And then they were trying to teach you how to see fake news, which is a total nonsense. What you should ask yourself is just the opposite question. What is true news? And once you ask what is true news, then you kind of, oops, it's difficult. Then you don't know anymore what's going on. So for me, like, do you know this now a little bit environmentalist stories with? So I think this is the symbol of what's going on. So when you have these people who are very concerned with the planet and how the planet has to survive and so on, and then the Europeans, they have this a very bureaucratic approach to it. So the planet is in problem. What are we going to do? We are going to ban the plastic straws. This is a kind of a problem, so no more plastic straws. It's going to be better. And the other thing, we are going to connect the cap of the bottle to the bottle. And if we do these two things, these are small steps, but in the end, we will save the planet. Yeah. So for me, this is totally ridiculous. I think it's, you know, it's kind of, this is, in my understanding, calling avoiding the problem, yeah, and kind of pretending you are doing something on it, but you're actually doing nothing, yeah. And then look at this guy. So look how this looks like. This is breaking news. It's breaking news. President Trump signs more executive orders.
Next, this
Look
is
at
an
this now, what's
executive
going
order
on.
related
I
to
thought
the
I
use
will
of
do
paper
this movie. I
straws.
wanted to do this
As you
movie
consistently
myself, but then he did
identified,
it.
nobody really likes paper straws.
Number one trending. Can you believe it? A paper straw was number one trending for 3 days or something.
The environmental impact of plastic straws versus paper straws is entirely unclear. This has cost both the government and private industry an absolute ton of money and left consumers all over the country wildly dissatisfied with their straws. So we're asking aspects of the federal government, federal departments and agencies to look at their existing procurement processes, and we're asking your domestic policy council to look holistically at this issue to address it, and it really is something that affects ordinary Americans in their everyday lives.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay. And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're eating, as they're munching their way through the ocean. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, you get what's the, like, how do you, I think more than ever today, we have to think about things, yeah? Kind of don't go to funny judgments and so on, because things are very tricky to figure out what's going on and how. Like I had to watch this 3 times because I really thought this was Mid-Journey generated. So there are a lot more with him, or for instance, when Elon Musk is bringing his child and then the child is telling to Trump, you are not the president, and these kind of things. Like it's insane. Huh? So if these things are happening, how do we play with these things? I think with big data, what's interesting now, if we put it on the level of data, if you have big enough data set, you can make any argument. And these arguments are always mathematically correct. So they have a kind of a background. So you can, if you are a conservative person, you can argue in a way that you make a logical argument. But then you ignore that there can be any argument about anything and it will always be correct. So you just have to find, so what you do with data, you can always extend the data set, you can stretch the data set, you can squeeze it, and you play with the data set until you get exactly what you want to have. So this is a funny, so not completely, but there is a tendency of doing it in this way. So data will show you stuff, but you have to know what you are looking for. You have to kind of engage with it in an active way. It's not an objective truth that's coming from the objective data or from the data that objects are giving us. It's more like a conversation. So if we have the planet, yeah, and then we are in a conversation with the planet. If we disturb the planet a little bit too much, then the planet raises the temperature. It tells us, okay, back off. Then you have to back off a little bit, then the planet cools down. So it's a kind of a conversation of what's going on rather than explicit objectivity. So it's talking, it's a kind of diplomacy. It's all of these things that we are trying to address and discuss. And I think in this sense, with our architecture and with our information, we should be able to host these things. We should be able to host this somehow and to host this, but in principle in this way. Not by saying what's good, what's bad, what's like this, what's like that. I got super pissed after coming back from China to Europe, and whenever I was sharing my fascination with China, then everyone was kind of looking at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, they were like, yeah, but they're all depressed. And I'm like, no, they're not depressed. Yeah? They're not, they don't look depressed, man. They look kind of good. Yeah. So if we cannot accept this, I think it's more our problem than their problem. Yeah. Like I will just go through a few of those images that we did. Now again, these videos, but just to give a kind of for this we don't need sound, yeah. But these are the scenes from this city. Look how this looked like. It looks nice. All these buildings are powerful. They are well made. There is infinity of them. You can, I mean, once you see this, how do you do this in 30, 40 years? We have these cities which are 2,000 years old and so on, and this is 40 years. Or what one of the best sentences was when Ludger came one time from Shenzhen, he said, like, in this city, all the buildings are younger than me. Yeah? Like, I mean, it's a crazy sentence that you can say something like this. This is the gasoline truck driven by one of you, yeah, and then the rest are all electric cars. This is this techno part where they have all this electronics, and what you see with this energy of these young people, everyone is doing something. So for instance, in Europe, after 8 o'clock, no one is working, yeah. So rarely there's some fanatics somewhere doing their stuff. But in Shenzhen, like non-stop, we went to one market with clothes at 8 o'clock. This was like full. These are these shops with electronics, which are like infinite. And everything is full of these LED screens. Yeah, like this is so cool everywhere. Camera. There is this electric. There is a certain electric moment which is very, very cool, which Europe doesn't have and which US doesn't have. The only thing that US had that the Chinese didn't have was the self-driving electric car. So a car that in LA, really a car, you order it on your phone and there is an empty car comes and you go in and you go with it. Yeah. So this the Chinese didn't have.
Well, I had it in book sheet.
You had it as well. Okay, so they have it.
Other than
Yeah. But this is the art district where they do paintings and sculptures. This is Adil and Agustino drinking coffee. Kolhas, this was very powerful building, huh? Adil always says we need some horizontality in Shenzhen, yeah? And then Kolhas has this horizontal thing. And then these are beautiful moments just, when the sun is coming down and the skyscrapers are getting lit with the lights, and you have this beautiful, where is it? This one, huh? Look at the light, how it's beautiful on this image. For instance, I now don't take photos anymore. I just do videos, like short videos from the phone, random. And then you have these guys doing cocktails. It's very, very impressive and very kind of, you look at this and you don't have a clue what to think about it. But it doesn't feel bad. Yeah? I'm sure that there are problems there. So I'm not saying that this is an ideal setup. I'm sure there are problems, but the way how this Chinese development is presented in the West, I think it's a little bit silly. This, and then they have what we discussed in what's so cool with the cars is that you sell cars in mobile shop stores. So you have the phone, the tablet, the computer, the screen, and the car in the same shop. It's not that the cars are with the car fanatics, yeah, and the gas station. No, they're with the phones. They changed the game. now we are coming to an interesting moment. Yeah, but let's do it like this, huh? We went to two kind of interesting places. One was, but first we start with the other one, huh? Or with this. Yeah, this. This is the Kop Himmelblau building in Shenzhen. Beautiful building, done very, very nicely in terms of details. But I think this is a kind of almost, I think in Europe is the same when you go to these big institutions, for instance, related to art and so on, the exhibitions are always kind of a little bit shit. Here, this was taken to an extreme. So you have this building which is screaming, I'm cool, I'm contemporary, I'm crazy, I'm rich, I'm all of this. And then it's empty. And look at how they are like look at this. So look at what here I'm trying to talk about is consistency of things. Look how this building looks like. Look at the way how this is reflecting, how you have the crazy shape, how you have all these beams. Look at this, how they are setting up the exhibition with these things, huh? It's just disaster. Or this is the exhibition inside of this space. It looks like it's done in a kind of a local community in a random village in the middle of nowhere. Huh? So the things which are displayed in this building and how they are displayed when compared to the building, it's just ridiculous. And then, of course, you have a kind of a political propaganda inside as well on one place, and this is also looking a little bit awkward. So, yeah, this kind of stuff. Always on huge screens, yeah, like the screens are always fantastic, but what's on them, it's a disaster. So this is a kind of a big official institution. This looks like corruption, yeah? So something is wrong there. The building, the level of the building and the level of exhibits is in this proportion. And I think that if you go in Europe I went in Munich to one exhibition and it was the same kind of disaster. But this is another story. I don't know if you know, and when we went there and saw this, I was like, Meteora is great. Huh? So you're always thinking what we are doing, does this make sense? No, doesn't make sense, and so on. And then there is this strange company, a gentle monster, which is doing sunglasses or glasses from Korea. Yeah? And they have a shop in Shenzhen, and this is called House Nowhere. So this is, in terms of production, in terms of quality, in terms of space, in terms of anything, 100 times more interesting, more sophisticated, better than what these guys in this exhibition in the museum did. Huh? Like, first they have this huge screen, huh? Like at the entrance with this stuff. There is this mantis there. Huh? And look at this. This is a robot. Yeah, this is a robot, a dancing robot inside of the shop. Look at this guy. Look how the people look like. Huh? And if you look how the people look like in that museum, it's again a disaster. And then there are all these kind of these things, how they look like, huh? Insects. Look at this stuff. This is a shop for sunglasses. Huh? So imagine the level of production for these things. So who are they inviting? So it's a little bit technocratic in a way, but still it's impressive of what's going on. And this is all moving, yeah. So it's kind of, and everyone is taking pictures. Everyone is kind of feeling a little bit cool. And you are like, what is this? I've never been in a shop like this. So you have these bisons, and they're also electric and moving. And like you're like, you know, what's this? It's sunglasses shop, yeah. I mean, just to compare this, and then you have this huge sculpture, and you know what's this? It's a mythical story about the creation of the world. That's the cool part about it, yeah. So it's exactly the kind of, I'm not exactly. Don't take me too serious, yeah. Like it's there is a certain. What's interesting here is how do they brand this stuff? Okay, I will come and look at the guy who is selling. This is the salesman, yeah. So it's in sync with what's going on inside. Yeah, they pay him to look like this. They are the same. Yeah, like the robot and him. And then you have this big guy. This is their the website. Huh? They have a lot of shops. I think this is the nicest one they have. House nowhere in Shenzhen. Yeah, this is the insect kingdom. The first three creations. Look at this now. In the beginning, the monad, the first of beings, modeled three beloved creations: insectoids in the shape of mantises, beasts resembling bisons, and the colossal first human. The story of the beginning, in a way, the monad. So there is, they're playing something. We should do it more sophisticated, more complicated, more in depth. Yeah, but the gesture is the same. And then they create the mantis, they create this guy, they create the bison, then it's the imprisonment of the insect kingdom. So the level of branding, how they do it, is just super, super nice. What's interesting in the way how they do it is that they don't make arguments in this logical way. We will save the world, we will do it like this, we will do it like that. But the idea is that you create your brand of your sunglasses, and then you are saying, what do I want these sunglasses to be connected to? And then they say, I want to connect the sunglasses with Mugler. Then they have a collaboration with Mugler. Then I want to connect glasses with I don't know, this artist. Then they have a collaboration with this artist. Then I want to collect these sunglasses with Tekken, the video game. Then they have the Tekken sunglasses. So instead of arguing about these things, what they are doing, they are creating a constellation of association. I think it's a proper branding. Yeah, constellation of associations which create a kind of a cosmos around what they are doing. Yeah, and then they render it towards these things. So then there is a specific flavor of what they want to do. So I was kind of quite amazed and surprised in a nice way how they're doing it, or maybe I'm reading it in the wrong way, but I think it's productive to read it like this. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit more, and then we have a short break. So what then the idea is somehow that with all of this that's happening around, that we create a kind of a figure that talks about things that we care. So these guys care about selling sunglasses, and they create a cosmos around how to sell sunglasses. We want to create a cosmos around something a little bit more kind of relevant for the planet. We want to discuss certain things about diplomacy, about winds, about communicating, and so on. And we need to create a cosmos around them, create a kind of a figure that has a face and that has a stance, that has something to say about things that we want to do. Like these guys. So with these mantis, they create a certain face. Then you can say this face is like this or like that. And then they have all these stories which are coming in the background. And for us, we think that the way how to play with these things, adequate way to play these things, is with the availability of information. So with coding, with thinking of coding, computation, and so on as a kind of a literacy, rather than thinking of it as a way of problem solving or optimizing things. And in this sense, and in many other senses, we think it's all about writing. Yeah, so you have to have a kind of an attitude towards these things, and the best, or I think the most proper way to articulate these attitudes is through texts. And today, what's happening is that through text, we articulate our ideas. Through text, start to create images. Through text, we start to code. So somehow this text is becoming more and more powerful in the way how we write. And what's beautiful with this is the notion of literacy. Because through literacy, you can write an SMS, you can write an email, you can write an essay, you can write a beautiful book, or you can write a poem. And with literacy, the other thing which is important are also formats through which you express things. And we always like to address global problems, so something which is at stake today on the planet. Yeah. So and we think as well that great architects always did this stuff. So great architects always actually cared about the world. What's beautiful about architects and architecture is that we are generalists. We are not disciplined. We are not specific in what we do. We cover, in a way, the whole world. And then architecture, in terms of its etymology, this text part, is about bringing things together. It's about weaving things together. And if you see that the text part in architecture is the same text part like in the text. Text is also weaving things together. Textile is also weaving things together. It's about, I think all the cool things are about weaving things together. Money is about weaving things together as well. Yeah? What I didn't say, just one more observation about I think where the gentle monster failed a little bit, or at least for a European, where it fails. Like, you know, where they put the thing, this thing. So it's a kind of a very cool shop, but they put it in a shopping mall. And this is a little bit shit. Like this thing that we went to, just a second, like, yeah, this, huh? This is a textile neighborhood where they produce textiles. It's 9 in the evening. Look at this, what's going on at 9 in the evening. Everyone is busy. So they're just doing stuff and moving around. And I think this textile neighborhood, this would be cool for instance, if this Gentle Monster was a cool European brand, like, I don't know, Margiela or something like this, they would place it in a neighborhood like this. So they would like a little bit trashiness combined with this kind of fancy stuff. But I think in Asia, there is a different sentiment. There is this love for the new and for the clean in a different way. So they appreciate the shopping mall. Just a small digression. For me, this was like, I don't like where it is, but I like all the other stuff. But that's, I think, culturally biased as well. But now going back to the architects, how they're dealing with global problems. Yeah? Like if we take the two masters, for instance, Alberti and Corbusier. Alberti, if you look what he wrote 10 books on architecture. He wrote about the family in the Florence. He wrote the book on the alienation of city of Rome. He wrote a book on cryptography. He wrote a book on painting. He wrote a book on sculpture. So the scope that he's dealing with is insane. Yeah? It's a generalist idea again. And he, while doing this, by writing a book on painting, what he's doing is actually dealing with cutting edge technology of the time. He's writing a book on AI. Yeah? For instance, this would be a book on AI today, but he's writing on perspective, and perspective is the new invention of the time. So it's coming with the printing press and the perspective. These are the cool stuff of the day. So what he is addressing is the cutting edge things of his time. The same is with Corbusier. He is doing the modular, he's doing paintings, he's doing sculptures, he's transitioning from the village to the city, he's into concrete, he's into doing branding and writing books, international style. All of these kind of things are in the scope of what he's doing. He's always addressing the whole planet in a way. So this is what we want to do as well. Of course, this is a little bit difficult and tricky, but I think what we don't want to do is this, yeah. You know, you have Arch Daily, and this just goes forever, nice architecture. And all of it is sustainable, all of it is feminist, all of it is very nice to the refugees, all of it is a little bit AI. You know, it's just falling back on the classical cliches. So today we have like 6 stories which people like, and then you always make your architecture fall back on already established stories by someone else. And then in principle, you are a follower. course, it's difficult to get out of this, but what we want to push you towards is that you tell interesting stories about what's going on somehow, and these stories are not correct. And I think with this, what's also important is that it's not too serious. So you need a little bit of humor in these kind of things and to play around with stuff. And while we are doing this, what we are kind of quite proud is that these things that they work on the level of the phone. So it's phone lightness. Yeah. So you can do your first module while driving in the bus on your phone, texting with Alice, and then just copy pasting stuff and so on. So we don't require heavy computers. We don't require these kind of things. We require a little bit of thinking and kind of developing a mechanics, how to relate things around. Yeah? What we want to go is beyond functionalism. Yeah. So what is it? If you ask this question, like what is architecture beyond functionalism? Architecture without functions. So we are so pushed into this direction that it's almost impossible to imagine, was there any time, any architecture which was not functional? And then you just go to Renaissance and to Baroque, and these rooms were not functional. These rooms were like in Versailles, you have rooms, yeah, and then there is a corridor which connects those rooms, and it's a kind of an enfilade of rooms. But these rooms are not bedrooms or bathrooms or I don't know, living rooms. They are rooms in which anything can happen. It's a room of Mars, and then this is a room of betrayal, and this is a staircase of desire, or I don't know what, yeah? So in these places, anything can happen, and they don't serve a specific function, yeah? Like these computers don't serve specific function. They serve any function you want to have. And I think with those computers, when you enter with these computers in today's rooms, then these rooms become multifunctional again. So they are not dedicated to a specific function. Like what we had with Corona at home. Yeah? You were working and sleeping and eating or at least me, in the bedroom and in the living room. So I was doing everything in all the rooms. Yeah? So these rooms were not anymore functional rooms, but they were not dysfunctional. Yeah, they could have many different functions. So it's about instead of creating functional spaces, it's about creating climatic spaces. And in these climatic spaces, we can have different kind of winds or whatever. And we think that the way how we populate these rooms with different objects, with different creatures, they then start to entice different discussions. Yeah, so if you go to your friend's house and then you see what kind of objects your friends have at home, what kind of clothes they wear, what kind of food they eat, what kind of drinks they eat, what kind of books they read, and so on, you get a feeling of who these people are in a kind of a climatic way just through the objects people surround themselves. Because every object is a kind of a choice that we make what we want to have. So let's use those objects to host stories that we want to talk about. So for instance, I don't know, if you go to a White House and you walk through a corridor, there will be paintings of different presidents. And then while walking through this thing, if you don't know what to talk about, you will turn your head, you will see these presidents, and you will immediately start talking about presidents. So try to foster certain kind of conversations and certain kind of discussions. And I think this is what the observatories are about. Yeah, to kind of host different atmospheres, different discussions and talks. And you can direct or not direct, host what you want to host. You can push it in a direction by being aware of what kind of objects you have. It's different if we have here on the table Coca-Colas or if we have Dom Perignon on the table. Yeah, it creates a different atmosphere. Or if we have Red Bull. Yeah, these are different ways of what's going on. And then in the same manner, and I think what happens with with AI is that these objects become alive. So AI is almost like a kind of a translator between us and objects. So it creates a kind of a language through which we are able to talk to different objects. So not measure them, but really talk to them. Like when you talk to a person, you can push the conversation in a specific direction, even if you don't know what the conversation is about. Okay, I think that's a kind of an intro into Shenzhen. I hope I was able to give you a certain fascination of what I saw in Shenzhen. I think it's really, really interesting and cool what's going on there.